Hey, it's Big Daddy. On the forum, Cigar Box Guitar Builders Forum, we're going to start a little discussion about ergonomics. Over my course of cigar box guitar building, I've developed tennis elbow or a tendonitis in my elbow really bad. And with talking with the physical therapist, I realized that some of it's a lot of the way I work. So I've done a lot of things and still have other things I'm going to do to my shop, but I have a video here on YouTube about my shop from way back, and I thought, why not do a little update? So we're going to do a little quick shop tour of some of the changes we've made. This used to be my primary workbench, and I still do use it for some things, like when I route necks and if I have to use a scraper or something. That little L shape in the countertop there makes a great place to clamp a neck. But for the most part, it's about 4 inches too high, so I rebuilt a new workbench that's lower. And you wouldn't believe how much difference about 4 inches makes in what it does for the position of your arms and your shoulders and your back and your neck while you're working. The old workbench, I used to clamp all my clamps up there, but it was a fixed type rack, and I had to reach up to put the clamps on it. I had to reach up and, actually put the clamps on it. Well, when I'm reaching up with my bad arm, this is very hard to do. So now, when I need clamps, I just take this whole rack down, take off what I need and put the rack back up. When I'm done with the clamps, then put them back on my little spacer there and hang it back up. Not only is it easier on my arm, but as you can see, I've got a ton of little 1 and 2 inch clamps, which are great for putting on fingerboards or gluing up scarf joints. Then, as far as my workbench, I keep tools that I use regularly at arm's length. They're just straight out where I can reach them from the workbench without having to reach up or bend over to reach down into something. It works really well. A lot of the parts I use regularly are in bins right there in front of me on the workbench. Tools that I don't use quite as much go a little higher on the wall, but are still within easy reach. I keep some of my fingerboards and things that I use regular in little bins underneath, and sanders, routers, just different pieces at close range to where they're not very far away. Of course, you got to have some amplification out here, so we've got a nice little crate amp underneath the counter that kind of helps there. But anyway, when you come in the shop, that's kind of the basic thing you run into, is workbench 1 and 2, where I do most of my work. The bandsaw is now about 6 inches lower than it used to be, and it also, I don't know if I can show you this without it being all a real Blair Witch Project on you, but I've got it on a turntable so that my shop's really small, so I can't just have it sitting out in the middle of the floor, so I turn it sideways for small parts, and I can turn it out like this when I have long pieces to do. Behind it we keep storage for little blocks of wood that we need, storage for spray lacquers and different stains and such. Of course, you gotta have a stereo in here. We're music people, so gotta have it. But anyway, the bandsaw is down about 6 inches from where it used to be. You can see how tall that workbench is that it sets on compared to, it used to set on this workbench, which is a good 6 inches higher. So you're almost a good 50 inches from the floor, your arms were, which put them in a funny position. This workbench over here is my brother's. He works on this bench. His is a little higher than I like mine now, but it's not bad. I'd say 34 to 36 inches for most folks, unless you're a lot taller than I am. Works really good. But again, parts bins, air compressor, the belt sander that we love and abuse. See, I used to have my clamps like my brother does. He'll end up with the same tennis elbow, but I used to have a little rack, and I used to just clamp them straight over my head, and I had to reach up and grab them every time, and that's what he still does. It'll catch up to him in a few years. But anyway, Back here we have storage, pre-made necks and neck blanks, cigar boxes, and some partially completed guitars. Just other assorted tools, parts bins, table saw, our big clamp station, and we used to clamp those in the rafters above us. We used to take and just clamp them onto the cross rafters up there and reach up and grab them. Well, 1 or 2 clamps is okay that way, but if you're doing a lot of clamping, and we often do, it doesn't work so good. So now when we need clamps, we come over and we grab a handful, clamp something up, set it aside, and we get another handful of clamps, and it just works a lot better. It's easier on your arms. Of course, we've got our beloved wood burner going today because it's cold here today. But anyway, you can see the shop's not very big, so we've really got to maximize our space the best we can. Give you an angle from this end of the shop. There's Dan's workbench. He's got the planer on his workbench and the belt sander. Shelving unit where we keep some overstock stuff. My old workbench straight ahead. Oh, I didn't mention the scroll saw. The scroll saw, again, I have a small shop, so I don't have room for it. It goes into a little, I'm going to set this down so that I can show you and you can still see it. The scroll saw is on what used to be an old wood ironing board, and it folds up into the wall, which, I mean, that scroll saw takes up 2.5, 3 feet. So when I'm not using it, it gets folded up into the wall and it's out of the way. And there's another view of the bandsaw. And like I said, from here you can kind of see how it turns sideways, and then you can, with that turntable, you can turn it out and face the shop a little better. Another view of my main workbench. Bunch of necks sitting there getting ready to be made for kits. 4 pounds of fret wire there. But anyway, that's the Back Porch Mojo shop. Nothing fancy. It's small. It's packed full of goodies. But we get a lot done in here. But I wanted to take a minute and show you some of the few changes we've made to try and make it easier on our arms and our bodies to work without hurting ourselves. Got to work smarter, not harder. Anyway, Big Daddy with Back Porch Mojo. Hope you enjoyed the tour.